The federal indictment of New York Attorney General Letitia James on charges of bank fraud and making false statements to a financial institution represents a watershed moment in the intersection of law and political power. Issued by a federal grand jury in the Eastern District of Virginia, the indictment is a grave legal matter that has instantly become a focal point in the larger, acrimonious debate over the potential weaponization of the Department of Justice, DOJ. James, a prominent Democrat who successfully secured a massive civil fraud judgment against former President Donald Trump, has characterized the charges as baseless political retribution, a claim underscored by the unconventional path the investigation took to reach the indictment stage. Summary and reasons for prosecution. The core of the issue stems from a 2020 mortgage bails James secured on a residential property in Norfolk, Virginia. The indictment alleges that James signed a second home rider, which granted her favorable loan terms, a lower interest rate of approximately 3%, predicated on the property being used primarily for her personal use and enjoyment. Federal prosecutors charged that James immediately rented the property out to a family, converting it into an investment property. By allegedly misrepresenting the property's intended occupancy, she saved approximately $18,933 over the life of the loan, leading to federal charges of bank fraud, 18 U.S.C. Section 1344, and making false statements, 18 U.S.C. Section 1014. The prevailing analytical lens, however, is not the financial discrepancy, but the political timing. The indictment was brought forward just months after James concluded her high-profile civil suit against former President Trump. The political motivation is explicitly alleged by James and her defense attorney, Ab Lowell, who noted his deep concern that the case is driven by the president's public push for revenge. This concern is amplified by reports that the previous U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, Eric Siebert, resisted filing charges due to insufficient evidence before being replaced by Lindsey Halligan, who swiftly brought the indictment. The apparent political interference in the charging decision, especially for an isolated case of occupancy fraud, which is rarely prosecuted federally, is the primary driver of the controversy. Analysis of consequences and institutional damage. The immediate legal consequence is a high-stakes criminal trial for a sitting state attorney general. If convicted, James faces substantial penalties, including decades in prison, a possibility that immediately impacts her ability to function in office and manage her ongoing legal responsibilities in New York. However, the most severe consequence is institutional damage to the DOJ. The perception of an indictment being ordered by the executive branch against a major political opponent shatters post-Watergate norms intended to ensure the nonpartisan integrity of federal law enforcement. This case, coupled with the similar indictment of former FBI Director James Comey, risks cementing the public view that the U.S. justice system is being weaponized to settle personal and political scores. This erosion of trust is pervasive. It challenges the legitimacy of the outcome, regardless of whether James is acquitted or convicted. The precedent set suggests that the law, filled with technical violations, can be wielded selectively against specific men rather than applied generally to specific crimes. Prediction and proposed solutions. The near-term prediction suggests the legal battle will hinge not just on the facts of the mortgage application, but on the defense's motion to dismiss the case based on vindictive and selective prosecution. This motion will force the court to scrutinize the highly irregular internal DOJ process, including the resignation and replacement of the U.S. Attorney. Politically, even if James is ultimately acquitted, the trial itself will likely hamstring her professional career and political future, serving as a distraction and a continuous source of negative coverage. The broader prediction is that the controversy will further polarize the national discourse, continuing to chip away at the faith in nonpartisan governmental functions. To address this crisis of institutional integrity, several solutions are warranted. First, there must be a thorough, nonpartisan, and public investigation, perhaps by a special counsel or a congressional committee, into the circumstances surrounding the appointment of U.S. Attorney Halligan and the reversal of the initial charging decision. The public deserves transparency regarding the pressure applied to former U.S. Attorney Siebert, Second, Congress should codify more robust firewalls and legal mechanisms to shield specific criminal charging decisions, especially those targeting high-profile political figures, from direct or implied presidential influence. These mechanisms must ensure that political directives cannot override the unanimous legal judgment of career prosecutors, restoring the foundational principle that the law is enforced based on evidence, not retribution.